morning, good day to you. As usual, wherever and whenever you listen to Series of Knowledge Seekers from Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, we welcome you back and we hope we can start something new and carry on with what we've done in the old time. As in the past 2 weeks, we've been explaining the situation with what we saw as objects in the sky, as our own planet is another object in the sky of the universe. We have learned a lot, and the progress and the process has been so fundamental that will bring many changes to us. Short term, we have to see. Long term, it definitely brings new knowledge, and it forces man and the science to look at different systems and than what we've done up to now, which is we relied on energy, on trying to overcome the gravitational forces. And we have burned fuels and everything else, but we never looked at the structure within the way that the universe works. And what has puzzled the scientists of the man today in the past few months, and especially in the past few days, is that they have seen the work of the energy and they do not recognize it. Whereas knowledge seekers, you have seen the work of energy. You call it the magnetic field of the GANs, the magnetic field of the dynamic systems. And you see it, you understand it. So as knowledge seekers, you are years ahead of the present science. Because to you it's normal, you talk about it, you see it, you have seen different angles of it. And especially in the past 12 months and 2 years, we have demonstrated technology in a very dynamic way by producing materials. But I was sitting, watching how the governments collectively have become paralyzed with this new technology. Now they're looking for new technology they don't understand. It is something that it does not make sense. It is something that to them burning the fuel and slingshot effects and the rest of it has more meaning than actually how the celestial objects, how the whole universe works. Amazing enough, there is something very tricky which has happened in the past few days as this little chap, 3i, even though being some 10, 15, 20 kilometers in different directions, is puzzling what we call the world of science. But as we look deeper, we see, especially when you look at its pictures, even distance pictures, it gives you every fingerprint of a flying object. It has a dynamic structure around it, which creates a gap, it creates a light which is green, and it changes up it needs. The way, if you look at it, as knowledge seekers, you put your gases in the cup. One day was black, one day became gray, and one day changed to green, and then it went to the black. And we've seen this past 10, 15 years as knowledge seekers. You see it, you understand it, but the world of the science of today has not got the grasp of it. How come it changes color? It's very simple. The system inside is creating different gravitational magnetic field for different operation. So the interaction with the magnetic field of the solar system and the sun creates that interaction. In a way, if you look at it, our scientists actually are sitting against the wall, banging their heads, but not seeing what you and normally all of us will see in LED light. We change the strength of the current, we get the orange, blue, yellow, and every other color in the LED. The knowledge of what we call the 3i is the same. The energy is exchanged in the reactors inside to stand the condition and the speed and the direction which needs to go. So, as knowledge seekers, you are decades ahead of our professors, elite scientists. And you understand exactly how it changes color, how it heads forward, it goes backwards, and they keep on saying, in the world of science of today, usually there's a tail on the meteorite, but this time the thing is in front of, which we all know is the direction of the motion. But what is interesting is how three groups and nations which had access to actually monitor the whole structure at its closest point to Mars, suddenly, few minutes before, they all shut down. Americans, NASA has a good excuse. Oh, because of the financial cost. The financial cost does not matter. Was there, is there, it hasn't changed. And then why the Chinese gone quiet? Why the European Space Agency systems have gone blank for those times which was the most crucial to look at. As we've seen, as we explained before, when the system absorbed the energy from the sun, it did something very funny. It absorbed huge amount of energy, and then it used that energy to incubate and released with it more and more pieces. Funny enough, we have seen, we expected one of these satellites actually followed the system through Mars. The other two are heading for Earth and for the moon. Why was everything with the governmental system, which could look, goes silent minutes before it actually, when it's the closest they could take? Days past now, we haven't seen not many pictures, one or two from amateurs. But when you look at amateur ones, it gives you every indication this is what we call a UFO on travel. And as I said, these systems don't change their line just because there's an obstruction. They find a way around it, but going a straight line in a bit of deviation. But we, as scientists of plasma technology, start looking at another position, creation of life, and how new cycle of lives will manifest itself on this planet, on this solar system. Because, as we said before, Venus used to have the characteristics of the Earth. As it's moved forward, emptied, Earth has taken its position. Now Mars is on line to come in. So why Mars was chosen for the first landing? Because Mars is to structure a type of life which in the future can support the new life which has entered the solar system. In a way, is seeding for the time when Mars is on the orbit of the what we call Earth. In the future, life on it is already predetermined. Which means now we have three opportunities. One, what is in the space traveling. One, which will come to us between 12th and 17th of this month. We know there's a satellite on its way to Earth. And then one, how life will take shape on Mars. In a way, colonization from the space on Earth. We colonized different, what we call, part of this planet in different ways. And now we're getting, in a way, pirated by others from the universe on this planet. The continents has become planetary systems. And it shows the extent of knowledge. What will be interesting to see is how much from sometime next Sunday, the world media will obstruct and will not show what is about to happen. You're expecting a window of a time that it comes back again sometime in December or before that. And we have to see how the structure takes place make shape, which way it'll turn, and the energy which we releases in interaction or becoming close to another object of the same, as we explained last time, releases a subtle energy which, with it, in interaction with the sun, will become the new cycle of life in the solar system. If the energy of the two would have met by the sun, it would have been a big condition, a lot of people would have thought. But you're talking about energy of matter, not matter energy. So the energy of these two objects in the matter would release a very subtle, we most probably will see it in a very, very low strength in nano and microteslas, which will create the vibration and the condition for creation of new life. There are two choices or two options, or maybe three, is that this release of the interactions we talked about again last week will set the scene for a new life to mix with the what we call the solar rays for beginning of a new life. Then, in that process, new cycle of life will start anywhere on this solar system. The best candidate is and can be the Mars, the Earth, and possible Venus. Venus will get too hot, it cannot go. So Mars and Earth with our moons are best candidates for life. Consistently being there will come. In a way, when you look at the process, it seems that this cycle repeats itself every around 3,000 years. There are track records of this. And because there were track records of it in the past, we know such an encounter should have been made sometime now. It's been predicted in some literatures in the past. Therefore, in a way, this, what we call flying objects, pays its annual cycle of 3 years to the solar system. Delivers, is done something routine for maybe thousands of years, and with it replenishes the life. In the future, in the past, millions of years back, millions of years forward planning. Therefore, us as human beings will be, in a way, by getting pulled to the sun, will not be here. But the technology which is left behind, the life which is left behind by these kind of interactions with the meteorites, guarantees the cycle of life, the intelligence. There are rumors, there are talks, the what we call the Chinese, the Americans, and the Europeans who had the tools to encounter this have already opened the channels of communication in some way or another. This will be confirmed in coming time. But the whole process, if our astronauts or our cosmologists had the time to be in the space to watch long enough, will tell us, in a way, that this passage is a regular passage. And it gets replenished, new cycle of life starts. And by the time it takes for Mars to take the position of the Earth, the life will be mature enough that can take over and run and be the same as what's on the Earth today. The most important part for us is, would we, in next months or years, encounter physically with the lives which has started by the interaction and entry of this object, this system. When we analyze, especially the pictures coming out by the world of people who watch it, we see, especially in past 48 hours, a clear picture of a UFO inside the block. It has a base, it has a top, and it's around about 10 miles or so, they say, or maybe 10 kilometers. And the edges of it, what we see is actually itself with a field around it. It shows a track record of magnetic fields, front and the back, which means where it's coming is pushing it away, and where it's going to is pushing into, moving into the space gap which is created. This object will never be touched by anything. No meteorites, nothing else. First of all, the speed is going. Secondly, the gravity is producing. It has a repulsion. And we see this in many of the pictures released. There is a space around it empty, which means it creates its own atmosphere. Where with meteorites and whatever used to come, we see direct hit of the magnetic field of the sun on the object, vaporization and everything is a tail. We don't see with this, which is characteristic of the system which has gravitational magnetic field. It has an intelligence because it can change itself according to the place and position in field strength. And we have seen is it divided. In a way, what we see for the first time is in our cycle of life, a direct encounter with the life in the universe. In the next few days, the next few weeks, we will learn more about ourselves. How much little we know. And would this affect a lot of our lives? Would this touch our lives? Maybe in a way, yes. Maybe we will encounter this, what we call space evolution, in being directly in touch, directly contacted, directly encounter, not necessarily in a physical dimension, in an emotional or in a what we call energetic way. We've seen these energies in the past few days. The media and what is controlled by the government are trying to close every gap because they do not know how to handle it. They do not know what would happen if people panic. And this is the reason that the Chinese, the European, and the Americans have shut all the thing down minutes before we could have such a detailed information and what it was. There is a discussion that the, what we call one of the pieces which was with the main body has already disappeared, which means has landed on the Mars, which means the colonization has started. We have to wait and see if we receive the same thing in the coming days. But if we do, we have the knowledge. We know how it works, we know how it is, and we understand the process of the technology. There are three things which humanity most probably has to be ready for. Would we see an increase in a certain type of reaction of the man, very much like COVID, as a space viruses across human race? Would we see in that process physical structures that we have to get used to? And at the same time, would we see a cycle that the presence of foreign entity brings man to come together? Fear of annihilation. And all indications since last week shows that when the Americans are at the throat of the Chinese and the Chinese are at the throat of the Europeans, and the same with the Russians, and they all shut their mouth, it means something has happened. They were shown the power of what they can do on Mars, that when it comes to us, you know who we are type thing. In a way, the fear of losing everything, uprising in China, in America, in Russia, in Europe, and the rest of the world, has brought the nations to shut everything down or pretend to. That is still processing what data collectively they are going to show. Therefore, there is something happening. Something has happened. And the normal run of the mill of the everyday of conflicts and what we see brings the nation at each other's throat and borders fighting. But this, for the first time, even in a time of conflicts, the way they're at each other's throat for past months and weeks and years, brought them all four to shut up, not to say a thing. Simultaneously close all the windows, which means we are ready, they know, for an interaction. Would that affect our systems? There is something very interesting which indicates that these interface interactions, as we saw, huge energy was delivered to TI, is carried on by the subsatellites, which means they can direct a huge energy from the star of the solar system toward themselves. And this is a threat. This is a threat because, as we saw, billions of megawatts delivered to one system, and according to our knowledge, they should have been exploding to pieces. As is a dynamic plasma system, it absorbed it and mixed it to itself, and it regenerated itself. If the same energy, and we have seen amazingly out of nowhere large activities of solar radiation, which some of it is towards us, and they tell us it's going to be a very busy year. It wasn't a busy year, suddenly become a busy year with this. They are connecting to these satellites, which have come out of the division of the triad, which one is heading towards Earth. So is showing a direction. Is it possibly, quietly, in a way, the world leaders of the today have been given what we call a warning? Could it be that this warning is that we do what we like, if you don't follow, you're annihilated? And they are watching the huge eruptions on the sun. And as I always said, the thunder goes from the base up. The base is traveling towards us. How much are we going to see? Are we going to see the end of a lot of things we have? Would it bring disruption to our, what we call, radio frequencies, the satellite operation and the rest, or will deliver an energy which change the emotional intelligence of the man? That because of it, man matures into a different dimensions, different being in the coming time, because we mature from this point onwards. There are a couple of indications of this, especially in past 48 hours. But we have to see, and if it has been, we'll explain in more detail. So, in a way, it goes back to the teaching of 3, 4 weeks ago. A new time has started for the citizens of this planet. A new reason, a new dimension. And in that process, mankind is getting ready for a new stage of what we call understanding. What we say, comprehension of the totality. And in so many ways, you as knowledge seekers have been prepared for it. In the coming time, when the scientists want to understand, they will understand the difference between the energy of the matter and matter of what we call energy of itself. And in that process, every ambiguity about the work of the 3I and R2 can be explained, understood, comprehended, and maybe in a way we thank them for bringing an enlightenment to us. And then you understand many of the things which, as knowledge seekers, you've been blamed for will become to the point that you become those who want to understand more. And you become the teachers of the technology of understanding. Those who want to understand, and then we see the division in those who just come to understand and bring their own new explanation for their own faith will pass very fast, very soon, compared to what you as knowledge seekers have understood, brought up together, and have made the fundamental changes in the structure of the energy and the fields on this planet. We will use, and through the understanding, the strength of the field of the soul of the knowledge seekers to be able to transmute, to transfer the knowledge of peace, the knowledge of humanity to the new welcomers of this planet. You have to understand, up to now, we looked up onto what are these. And as I said last time, if you see it and it's physical, it has not reached the strength of the knowledge and the strength of what we call maturity of what you as knowledge seekers of humanity has been taught as the dimension of the soul. They are still in matter energy dimension because it's physical and it goes fast. Where you've been taught the principle of the energy of the matter, which is the dimension of the creation, the dimension of the structure of the working of the universe in the non, what we call matter condition. We have to wait and to see if and how and when the encounters with and across this planet and across this solar system will take shape in the next few weeks. And then most probably we go back into the waiting another 3,000 years to come across this, what we call travels of space. I was explaining this to knowledge seekers. It's like, as I call it, what you go on a cruise. And the cruise has a pattern. It goes to different ports, few days, and then crosses to the next port and back to the same cycle again every few days or every few weeks, going the routine, going to the same port. And this is what we think and we see 3I is a regular visitor. It has been recorded 3,000 years ago by those who understood it, and is appearing exactly in the same spot, in the same direction, and through the same structure as what was seen, recorded by the men of the time in caves and in stones. But from what we've seen, that the interaction of the system does or has done, we see an increase in dust and all sorts of activities on Mars, which means it has a direct magnetic field interaction with the planet. What would happen with us in next few weeks when this material, few million kilometers or few hundreds of thousands of kilometers from Earth, will do to us? Would we see the upheaval we saw on the surface of the Mars? Would we see the changes in the dimension of the fields of this planet? And would we see, by interaction of the two, creation of new life? It's not necessarily as it's going to be a head-on collision and we have a meteorite hitting us. Is how we're going to get hit by the energy matter state of this system. You got to realize what could absorb such a massive surge from the sun can give out such a massive surge from itself to the sun. And this is what and how what we've seen, especially in the interaction with the moon, and what we see and we have seen in interaction with the Mars. What will be interesting for us to observe is, would this satellite will come to meet us face to face in the next few weeks? Or is another step? It knows its way, move in a certain direction, but the satellites have already landed. And as I said last time, millions and millions, hundreds of thousands of this thing has already been released. Russian space agency has released a picture of huge number of lights suddenly coordinatedly working in the atmospheric condition in Russia. So what was shows intelligence and what was shows life, because they all emit the same light frequency. And if you've seen the confirmation by the Russians, is enormous. It's like hundreds of jellyfishes in the ocean. But one thing is important for us is that, would this encounter makes us any wiser? Would this encounter creates a condition that we can connect to? And one question to ask, is it all right to put our children on a pathway to what is to come? What shall we do and how we react will be entirely depending on our world leaders. As knowledge seekers, you know what is the next step and what is to happen in the next step. It is important for us to understand that in the coming days, we might not see anything, but we might feel something. That feeling is exactly what this system was set up this way. My hope and my wish is that humanity will survive this, we should do. And my wish is that mankind become wise to become to its own man. And then we have to find a way to move forward. Everything has a cost, and man has paid too much for cost of living. And maybe with this knowledge we gain, with this knowledge and energy which come to us, we'll learn to live a better life. As I said, the day of judgment is not that everything will be on the table. The day of judgment is that I made everything ready. Let's start a new cycle, because what has been in the past will be judged by itself. One thing that we have to understand is if you come or encounter such object, how you react, how you should defend yourself, and how you can protect yourself from any harm. I hope that mankind can see a new time has started. From last week, from what we see, the what we call the clock is ticking, and the mankind is getting ready for a new evolution in the world of life of the man. And we hope that mankind has reached a point that has matured to peace. We are part of a structure bigger than ourselves. And maybe for the first time, we start understanding the working of this structure. And to what extent this structure will bring us peace is according to what our scientists understand the meaning of the peace. We go for a break and we come back and try to answer any of your questions as we wait to see what happens between 12 and the 17th. If we receive the same encounter all the way to December, or before December, before we see the effect of this celestial body on the body of the man.